I would like to welcome all of you to a brand new YouTube video. Today we are going to be ranking The Weeknd's entire discography from House of Balloons and Trilogy all the way to Donfm, which was just released about a month ago. I have talked about The Weeknd multiple times on this channel. My interesting story with The Weeknd, how when I would hear stuff on the radio or on TV or whatever, I would genuinely think the guy was massively overrated. But one day a Glorious album came out, I listened to it, didn't like it, went back and re-listened to it, then his entire discography, and I realized how just incredible Abel is and how good he is at making music, and he is now probably one of my favorite artists of all time. So yes, remember, it is my opinion. If you disagree with my opinion, just remember you have your own opinion, and your own opinion is we're going to be going from my least favorite album to my most favorite album. Mind you, I don't think the man has done anything below a 6 in his entire career, and I think he is not going to. But let's start off. Going in at number 7 is my least favorite. It's Starboy. I think Starboy is what cemented my my dislike for The Weeknd at first, because I just didn't, I used to really think The Weeknd wasn't that of a big deal. But then I went and re-listened to his entire discography, and I found myself liking all of his albums. But the one I did dislike the most was Starboy. Starboy is what cemented The Weeknd as The Weeknd that he is today. And it kind of sucks because there's some songs, or several songs in here that just don't cut it for me. You have Rockin', you have Attention, you have Party Monster. I just don't think those are like songs that go up to The Weeknd's caliber, to what he gave us before that and after that. I just think Starboy was a mega hit for some of the songs of this trap-esque sound, much like maybe Starboy itself or All I Know with Future. But yeah, I don't think Starboy is that an amazing album. I still like it. I still love songs like Starboy and Die For You and All I Know with Future. I love the Stargirl interlude with Lana Del Rey. I think it's a good album. I just don't think it cuts to The Weeknd's top, which is just magnificent. I think I'd give the album a 6.5 to a 7 out of 10, with my favorite songs being Starboy and Die For You. Placing in at number 6, from a 6.5, we're going up to a much better album, is Beauty Behind the Madness. If I said that Starboy was the one that cemented The Weeknd as this mega superstar, I think Beauty Behind the Madness was the stepping stone for that. I mean, there's just the amount of hits on this album, and not just random like okay hits like nowadays. These hits were so good. You had The Hills, you had Often, you had the one with Ed Sheeran. All the songs that went big on this album deserve to go big. Beauty Behind the Madness was the beginning of The Weeknd's musical style changing over to a more pop and mainstream sound, as you can clearly hear with Can't Feel My Face, and that one song that just sounds so much like Michael Jackson, which is In the Night. I mean, Shameless is a fantastic song. Really, there's only a few songs in here that I don't like, which is maybe the one with Ed Sheeran. I don't think Losers is a fantastic song. I also don't think the opener, Real Life, is that great. But my favorite songs on here are just top notch. They're fantastic, which would have to be The Hills, which to this day holds up so very well, and Acquainted. I think Acquainted gives us a mix of that, a blend of that old Weeknd with that new Weeknd that he was cementing at the time. I thought it's fantastic in my opinion. I think this album is a solid 8 out of 10, and what really made The Weeknd go into this different direction after his previous projects. Placing in at number 5 is My Dear Melancholy. Melancholy. That one. This is probably his most underrated project. I can't say album. It's a short project. It's maybe an EP. But there's not a single bad song on here. Every song is so good. He kind of went back to that darker, somber tone that was on a Trilogy, and without those, you know, suggestive lyrics, and it was more about heartbreak, but it still went back to a lot of those Weeknd roots that he started with. I think this project is really, really solid. It doesn't go higher on my list because it is only like 6 songs, but it's nearly a perfect project. I think the last song I don't really mind at all. It kind of goes over my head. But other than that, I mean, Call Out My Name is a heartbreaking classic, and I think my favorite song off of this project is I Was Never There with, I don't know how to say his name, Jeffelstein. I'm not really sure how you say that, but I think the production in that song is just top notch. It's so good. Yeah, I think My Dear Melancholy is his most underrated, his less talked about, and one of his best. I mean, everything from here on is just fantastic. I'm going to give this a 8.5 out of 10. Placing in at number 4 is his most recent. It's Donfm. The rollout for this album was curious because it was really short. Yeah, at the same time it was really long. He released Take My Breath by like November. I don't remember when he released it, but it made us wait a long time until then we heard whatever was next. But when he announced it, it came out in about a week, and I can say that I was pleasantly surprised. I wasn't a huge fan of Take My Breath when it first came out. I thought it was just more of what we had heard from After Hours, which was this big 80s synth pop album. But I was thoroughly surprised, especially with the concept of the album. I really like Jim Carrey's inclusion in the narration and building up to the story. I truly believe that this album is strongly connected to After Hours. He has mentioned there's a trilogy, and I have a theory that the next album is either going to be called Afterlife or Heaven or Las Vegas, which he mentioned on Instagram. But I thought that this was a really solid album. The only reason this isn't placed higher is because of its previous album, and the previous album before this was After Hours. And I don't know if he was going for a similar direction. I was trying to hear similar things from what I got from After Hours, and I will go into that more in a bit when I talk about that album. But there was a few songs on here that I don't really go back to. It's a very minimal amount. I think How Do I Make You Love Me and I Heard You Were Married. I don't really enjoy those songs as I enjoy other songs in the album, like Best Friends. But I think this 80s synth pop thing that he started with After Hours really worked on him, and he's really perfected it at this point. I think Donfm is a really strong album, and it's only been a month, so it might grow on me more in the future. My favorite songs on this album are a combination between Is There Someone Else or Starry Eyes. And these songs worked just in perfection next to each other. Because what I was talking about After Hours, and After Hours we got these like long deep cuts like Faith or Alone Again or After Hours itself, where if you put Is There Someone Else and Starry Eyes together, you get this somehow classic Weeknd song with this like darker, somber tone with a trap sound, and then you go to this like emotional deep cut in the end of the song. If you put these two together, it just works as perfection. I think I'm going to give this album an 8.5 to a 9 out of 10, and I really like this album. Number 3 is Kissland. When I was re-listening to his discography to make this video, Kissland was right at the bottom of this list, right at the bottom, even below Starboy. But I was an idiot, because this is such a good album, such a good sophomore project. I think he doesn't take it to a crazy new direction like he did with Beauty Behind the Madness, but it is something different from what he did with Trilogy. I think John Denton describes it best. I love John Denton. Trilogy feels very claustrophobic. A lot of the music makes you feel anxious and even stressed about what he's talking about and how it sounds. But this just feels bigger. It feels like the man is like, he knows where he's at, and it's a bigger space around him, and he feels more free. But with the lyrical content, again, being these like deep love and drug related songs, there's like It's taking it in a slightly new direction, but still keeping the good start from Trilogy. And I think it's fantastic. I think my least favorite song on this, probably the Drake feature. I really don't go back to it, but the Wanderlust song is just so good. I don't know if it makes me a bad person for liking the Pharrell remix better than I like the original version of the song, but I love both of them anyway. I think Wanderlust is a top 10 Weeknd song of all time. It's fantastic, really. Placing in at number 2 is Trilogy. Now, I thought about talking about this one individually, House of Balloons, Thursday, and Echo of Silence. I decided not to because it was going to take way longer, and I really rate all these projects very similarly. But I think from House of Balloons all the way to Echoes of Silence, I think it's all fantastic. It's a perfect introduction to the Weeknd. It's what I was talking about with the Weeknd feeling like a claustrophobic sound of like these dark R&B places. It is so good. I'm glad that this is getting more recognition nowadays, especially after the Super Bowl performance last year, where it was even really emotional, from House of Balloons heading over to Blinding Lights. I think the Weeknd has taken parts of this project and just placing them in bits in each and every one of his projects after that, and I think it's really cool when an artist does that, where he is somehow able to keep himself grounded in where he started, and yet having that evolution and that change with his future music. I think it's great. I think Trilogy is a 10 out of 10, and combining the 3 projects, I think Wicked Games is my favorite song off it. And for his absolute best album, The Weeknd's best album, and in my opinion one of my favorite albums of all time, is After Hours. So this is the album that made me a fan. This is the album that came out and everyone was praising it, and at first I was like, again, I don't really see the special in it, until about, what was it, October. I saw a tweet on hip hop Twitter asking, what is your top 5 of the year so far? And maybe it wasn't everyone's number 1, but a consistent was that After Hours was in everyone's top 5, and I just couldn't understand. I couldn't grasp what was so special about this album. So I decided to go back and re-listen about once or twice, and it's just a musical masterpiece. It's Abel's most cinematic album. I think with the perfect start of Alone Again, just gives you the whole idea of what the rest of the album is going to be about. And it does something that Donfm doesn't, which is what I was talking about as well. Donfm doesn't have these deep cuts. It has the same, similar songs to, the 80s, 90s synth songs that were on both albums, much like Blinding Lights, Save Your Tears, and Donfm, it's Take My Breath or Out of Time. But the difference is that in After Hours, you got songs, these long songs like Faith or After Hours or Alone Again, that just gave you so much in so little. It gave you so much to grasp. I think Faith is it's a beautiful song. Alone Again is my favorite Weeknd song of all time. And After Hours is such a sad song as well, but it gives you like sections. It's like a movie. It's like the song has like different sections that you need to put all together, and it somehow makes such a coherent story. I think it's wonderful. I think the entire thing is perfect. I don't dislike a single song out of this project, and I think it's the Weeknd's magnum opus. It's one of my favorite albums of all time. My favorite songs are Faith, Alone Again, and After Hours. Alone Again is my favorite Weeknd song of all time, and I give this album a 10 out of 10. Alright, so let's go. If you just get to this video to see what was my overall ranking, here it goes. At number 7, it's Starboy. Number 6 is Beauty Behind the Madness. Number 5 is My Dear Melancholy. Number 4 is Donfm. Number 3 is Kissland. Number 2 is Trilogy. And number 1 is After Hours. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, stay tuned for more.